What's going on, guys? It's the Skylander dude, and I've always considered myself to be better at collecting Skylanders than playing Skylanders. So that's why I decided to challenge myself to try and beat a world record Skylanders speedrun. Considering this will be my first time attempting anything like this, I didn't want to jump right in and try to speedrun an entire game. Instead, I wanted to beat a speedrun for just one level. And the first level that came to mind was Fizzland from Imaginators. I personally always enjoyed this level, and I'm super biased considering it stars Pop Fizz as the lead NPC. So before I hopped into the game, I decided to do some research and 1, find out how fast the current record is, and 2, watch the current record holder speedrun to pick up on any shortcuts they may have taken. This is where I ran into my first issue. I'm no speedrunning expert, so something I didn't even account for was glitches. And watching through the speedrun, I noticed this exploit the record holder did. Instead of defeating all the enemies to unlock the bounce pad, they brought in Slam Bam as a player 2, used his Ice Prison attack as a stepping stool for Aurora to jump onto the next arena. After watching that, I didn't want to mess with practicing this glitch over and over in hopes to not mess things up by the time I get that far in the level. Plus, considering how many times I'd have to play this level over and over, I didn't want to get sick of Fizzland. Pop Fizz deserves better. So I took Fizzland out of the question and I moved on to the next best thing. Instead of hopping into a level first, I decided to try and speedrun a Sensei realm as a warm-up. And what better realm than the one that also features Pop Fizz, the Magic Sensei realm. So with my mind made up, day 1 of this attempt began. First order of business was to actually unlock the area on the map where the realm is located. I've barely touched this save of the game, so I had to progress through the story a bit to get there. Once I did, I switched the game to easy and started the first run. I wasn't actually going for any sort of record today, just wanted to get a feel of the level because it's actually been a while since I last played it. I also just collected all the bonuses to get 3 stars for fun. Now I'm sure you noticed already, but I'm using an Aurora with her bottom path upgraded because it's the fastest non-Imaginator in this game. That's important to point out because speedrun.com splits Imaginators levels into a few categories. Any % completion without an Imaginator is what I'm going for, simply because I don't have a crazy Imaginator with boosted stats on this copy of the game. The reason the use of an Imaginator is split up because once you collect all Imaginator parts from the Imaginite chests, other chests you open in the future will contain duplicate parts which boost the stat of your Imaginator. As far as I know, this is an infinite process that continuously boosts the speed in your Imaginator the more duplicates you collect. Hence why I opted for the non-Imaginator category. The time I have to beat here is 4 minutes and 50 seconds from the time the cutscene starts to the end of the level, which is different from the speedrun stat the game assigns you at the end of the level. Speaking of which, that was all I missed for achieving 3 stars on the first day. But now that I spent some time going through the level, I started to pick up the pace here on day 2. I started my first run of the day, got spooked by the Bottle Beast, and dashed as fast as I could. Looking at the current record, the in-game speedrun time to beat was 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and I was making good time until I completely forgot how to finish the puzzle. The thing about this level is, I would need to memorize the fastest pattern to open the gates and bridges. That's really what I spent the day doing, practicing and memorizing. After a few more attempts, I thought I had it down alright, but I still wasn't making as much time as I hoped. So I used some resources and watched the record holders run for the Imaginators category. Good thing I did, because in doing so, I learned a little shortcut to holding open some of the green barriers. This would really improve my time, and once I had the new pattern memorized, I'd surely beat the record. And I actually already did. Just after learning this shortcut, I beat the no Imaginator record on day 2. However, I wasn't impressed. I know I messed up a handful of times today and I could easily beat my own record. So that's what I spent day 3 doing, beating myself. I played a good number of rounds today, just repeating the pattern, trying not to run into walls, and placing those gems in the receptacle dealies as fast as I could. So fast, in fact, that I'd often glitch the game into keeping the gems floating above my head even after I placed them down. This led to a pretty annoying effect of gems constantly swirling around me, but I guess I kind of just got used to it. But speaking of glitches, sometimes the Bottle Beast would just get tired of running from me to the point where I actually pass him. Kinda weird, but he always spawned back at the last fight. Throwing glitches aside, today was the day. I had the best run, beating all my previous attempts. I listened to Pop Fizz unskippable spiel one last time, and I was off. Popping in gems and dashing past the enemies I didn't have to take out. Then I reached the longest part of these runs, which is this enemy gate. Normally, I'd be able to take these guys out quickly, but they're so slow and spawn in the corners of this area. I have to wait for them to crawl to me and then wait longer for others to spawn. But Once killing those in a timely manner, I continued zooming through the gem pattern. I knew this was a good run, and warned the darn bottle beast about it. And I think I actually got in his head. He probably remembered the countless times I've been eliminating him, and he really didn't want to show up this last time. Better run.
There he is! There's that stealing punk!
No, he's not.
What for, Skylander?
But after I stupidly fell off the platform, took out the bottle beast and dashed to the grind rails. I jammed out to the theme and hoped for the best.
Level complete.
Boom! 253.
2 minutes and 53 seconds, or officially 3 minutes and 59 seconds for a speedrun.com submission. Almost a minute faster than the record. But this was just supposed to be a warm-up, and it still got me feeling confident. It was time for the real deal. So on day 4, I decided what better level to be at the top of the leaderboard of than the very first one, Cradle of Creation. I reviewed some of the past record holders' runs and didn't catch any exploits I'd have to practice. Just dashing with good ol' Aurora. So boom! Jumped right into my first run. And by first run, I mean like first speed walk. It was pretty slow. But just like the Magic Realm, I wanted to get a feel of the level again. The time to beat was 5 minutes and 33 seconds, or a little over 4 minutes in the in-game speedrun stat. And although this was a pretty bad first attempt, I learned there wasn't any sort of pattern or a shortcut I needed to remember like the Magic Realm. Simply just had to practice dashing with Aurora and literally completing the level as fast as possible. Though, there was one thing I had trouble getting a hang of. This stupid Imaginite ball. I didn't realize I'd be signing up to become a soccer player for this run, and this ball resulted in a ton of level resets. Game after game, if I pushed the ball too fast, I'd reset. If it was too slow, I'd reset. If I just couldn't dash into it fast enough, I'd start it over. This ball was the real enemy of the level, not even the Doomlander, which had its own issues. For one, a maxed out Aurora is literally too strong and fast for the Sorcerer Doomlander. Because she does so much damage in a short amount of time, the Doomlander just sits there with invincibility for a few seconds. Every time this Doomlander teleports, it's actually timed to not teleport again until its health bar is diminished to a certain amount. And if I did that too fast, I'd have to wait, which I did basically every time. And there's no avoiding that. Just have to deal with it and watch the time add up. But that was about my extent of complaints for this level, or so I thought. I knew what I had to do, and I knew that even the smallest mistake in the beginning would add an unnecessary second to my time. For example, literally seconds into the level, if I misaim a dash attack, I just ended up restarting. You see, as soon as you skip the beginning cutscene, you can start moving even though the screen is still black. So I'd be blindly dashing for the first few seconds to get myself ahead instantly. When I get to this wooden barrier, there's a very specific move I have to make. When Aurora does her flash dash on a fully upgraded bottom path, an explosive sword drops each time. Now, because this barrier is on a ledge, I have to stop dashing and jump, which of itself adds time, but I can get some of that time back. If I dash perfectly into this ledge, an explosive sword will be forced ahead of me on top. The explosion then does enough damage to the barrier that I can just dash through it. But if my dash was slightly off and the explosive sword wasn't pushed onto the ledge, I just gave up, because that would then take 2 dashes to break through it. I wanted to get the timing perfectly to have the best chance at a record run. This added up a ton of restarts so I can get this beginning timing perfect. And I mean a ton. But after trying over and over again, I had a few good runs that in the moment I thought were perfect. But after comparing the times, they still wound up to be a few seconds longer. I thought I was doing everything right, but every time I missed it by just seconds. So what was going on? What was I doing wrong? Well, turns out it was this newer save that's to blame. I mentioned earlier that I haven't beaten the game yet on PlayStation, but I didn't think that would have any actual effect on my speedrun. I was wrong. In the first level, there's 5 Imaginite chests that need to be opened for you to progress. I didn't think much of this until I took note of the time it took to open them. In these chests, you can get either standalone pieces for your Imaginator or pieces that are a part of a set. And to 100% complete Imaginators, you need to collect all the Imaginite part sets. I haven't done that on this save. So why is this important? Because when you open a chest with a part from a set inside, it takes like a second longer to skip through it because the game just has to let you know it's part of a set. You can see how much slower it is when I put these clips side by side. So because I kept picking up parts for the Imaginator sets, I'm adding a few seconds to my final time. This was holding me back like crazy. Because I didn't have the time to grind out Imaginite chests and finish these sets of parts, every run I'd do would be slower than it could be. And this really sucked. Considering how confident I was going into this, kind of felt like I hit a brick wall. I gave it up for the day, and when the 5th day rolled around, I figured I would give it a few shots on my Nintendo Switch copy. I had a few more Imaginator sets collected on here, so I was hoping there was less of a chance I'd get parts from a set in the chests. Plus, I was curious if some of the dialogue had a quicker skip time on Switch, but turns out it was slower if anything. The load times on Nintendo Switch between levels are so much longer than PlayStation, and even though they wouldn't count for the total time, it was still discouraging to have to sit through the longer loading screens. And on top of it all, I was still getting the same amount of set parts in the chests. So I had no choice but to take the defeat on this one. For fun, I took my best time of Cradle of Creation and submitted it. And although I was on the leaderboard, it wasn't the same satisfaction I wanted. Even if it was just for a day, I was confident enough that I'd see myself on the top of that leaderboard. I also knew as soon as I posted this video, someone would come along with a much better time than me, but I was fine with that. Just wanted a fun challenge for myself. But who knows? Maybe this isn't over. Once I get all those Imaginator sets, it may be time that I return to the speedrunning and try my hand at that record once more. But for now, it's time to give Aurora and my thumbs a break. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Peace.